Welcome to episode 4 of Law and Batting Order. I'm your host, Tony Iliakostas. Here are some quick hits from the past week. Move aside Steve McQueen because there's a new Cincinnati kid and his name is Barry Larkin. On Monday, the former Cincinnati Reds shortstop was inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame after receiving 86% of votes from the Baseball Writers Association of America. Larkin played all 19 seasons of his baseball career in Cincy and hit a career .295 average with 198 home runs, 960 RBIs, and had 379 steals during that span. Larkin was also a 12-time All-Star, a 3-time Gold Glove winner, and won the Most Valuable Player award in 1995. Congrats on your induction, Barry Larkin. NFL Wildcard Weekend was not far from being wild. The Giants' defense completely shut the Atlanta Falcons' offense down to 2 points. The Texans handed the Bengals a huge beating, and the Saints marched on the Detroit Lions. But perhaps the biggest game was the bout between the Broncos and the Steelers. During that game, the Broncos took a 26 lead over the Steelers at halftime, but Pittsburgh came back to tie the game up, and at the conclusion of the fourth quarter, the score was tied at 23. The game went into overtime, and the Broncos received possession of the ball. On the very first play in overtime, QB Tim Tebow, aka the Mile High Messiah, aka the Denver Deity, connected with his wide receiver Demaryius Thomas and ran 80 yards to give the Broncos a 29-23 victory over Pittsburgh and send Tim and his boys to New England for the divisional round of the playoffs. And right after that, Tebow, as well as the rest of the world, including myself, Tebowed. Bud Selig is coming back. On Thursday, owners voted 29-1 to give the baseball commissioner a 2-year extension to stay in his position. Selig has been baseball commissioner since 1992 when he was interim commissioner. The interim tag was removed when he was officially named commissioner in 1998. Some of Selig's greatest accomplishments as commissioner include instituting wildcard and divisional playoff formats, helping to designate April 15th as Jackie Robinson Day, and making significant strides to implement strict drug testing guidelines in both the majors as well as in the minor leagues. Today's Order in the Court will cover libel. This past Wednesday, the New York Daily News published an article in which key New York Jets players who kept themselves anonymous harshly criticized their quarterback, Mark Sanchez. One player in the article stated that Sanchez was, quote, lazy and content because he knows he's not going to be benched, end quote. The players went on to say that the only way to wake up Sanchez would be to bring in a stud quarterback to compete with him, and these unnamed Jets believe Indianapolis Colts quarterback Peyton Manning would be a great fit for the Jets. Some of the anonymous players see no improvement in Sanchez and would trade him in a heartbeat. The harsh criticism comes after the Jets finished their season 8-8 and missed the playoffs after going to the AFC Championship the 2 previous seasons. While many of these unnamed Jets players harshly bashed Sanchez, other Jets players and personnel responded. Center Nick Mangold tweeted that the critics should claim responsibility for their comments. Wide receiver Derek Mason, who was a member of the Jets during the beginning of the season before he was traded to the Houston Texans, confirmed on Fox Sports Radio that he never saw a lack of effort from Sanchez and that he tirelessly prepared for each game. Even Jets owner Woody Johnson on MSNBC's Morning Joe mentioned that Sanchez is always the first to arrive and the last one to leave the Jets facility. While there are members of the Jets organization who fully support Mark Sanchez, let's assume that Sanchez saw these comments in the newspaper and that his job as the starting quarterback for the Jets was compromised if the Jets brought in Peyton Manning. The issue at hand here is this. Could Mark Sanchez pursue a case of libel against the unnamed Jets players? Libel falls under the category of defamation, which is a tort. Restatement second of torts, section 568, subsection 1 defines libel as follows. Libel consists of the publication of defamatory matter by written or printed words, by its embodiment in physical form, or by any other form of communication that has the potentially harmful qualities characteristic of written or printed words. Libel is different from slander, another form of defamation, because slander is an oral form of defamatory matter. For the sake of this argument, however, libel is the more applicable form of defamation. To win a libel case, the plaintiff must prove the following: that the libel was published, that the words were of and concerning the plaintiff, the material was defamatory, the material is false, and the defendant is at fault. The Supreme Court decision of New York Times v. Sullivan highlights the rule of libel. The case dealt with an ad hoc coalition of civil rights leaders called the Committee to Defend Martin Luther King and the Struggle for Freedom in the South. They purchased an ad in the New York Times criticizing public officials in the South who used violence to appease a nonviolent civil rights struggle in the 1960s. The ad was brought to the attention of L.B. Sullivan, who was the Montgomery, Alabama police commissioner. While he was never explicitly named in the ad, Sullivan considered the ad false and defamatory. While the trial court and Alabama Supreme Court ruled for Sullivan, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously reversed the decision and ruled that Sullivan had the burden of proof to show that the New York Times lied when it printed the material in the advertisement. In the case of Mark Sanchez, there is a strong case for libel against the anonymous Jets players. First, it could be proved that the libel was published. The harsh criticisms landed on the shelves in the tri-state area, and the story was digitally published online for everyone to read. Second, it could be argued that the words related to Sanchez. The article explicitly references these unnamed Jets players talking specifically about Sanchez. Third, it could be argued that the material is defamatory. Mark Sanchez is a third-year quarterback who has several endorsements and is regarded as one of the young stars in the NFL. Any content in the media and elsewhere mocking his performance and his demeanor as a quarterback could be argued as defamatory. Fourth, it could be argued that the material is false. Sanchez could use his stats to show that he is not lazy. While his 2009 rookie season was not stellar with 12 touchdowns and 20 interceptions, his 2010 and 2011 stats show significant improvement not only in touchdowns thrown, but also in yards thrown, and even in completions. Sanchez's stats clearly show his maturation as a quarterback. Furthermore, it could be argued that taking his team to 2 consecutive AFC Championship games falls short of laziness on Sanchez's part. It could even be argued that he tried his best, but that his quote-unquote laziness isn't to blame for a poor 2011-2012 season. If there's anyone to blame, it could be now ousted offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, who failed to give Mark good plays to use in crucial situations. Finally, it could be proved that the unnamed Jets players were at fault. Sanchez could confirm with the New York Daily News to prove that these Jets players who defamed Sanchez were indeed the ones who admitted to making these comments. While Sanchez's argument of libel could prevail, it could also fail on the grounds of falsehood. How true are the unnamed Jets players' comments? After all, maybe Sanchez was indeed lazy, especially down the stretch. Perhaps his laziness is why the Jets lost 3 consecutive games and missed the playoffs. He could have been practicing hours upon hours, but Sanchez could have easily given up during a game, and that mere evidence of laziness could be enough to shoot down Sanchez's argument of defamation. While it could be argued that there is a lack of evidence of defamation, it seems pretty clear from the facts presented that Sanchez could win a libel case against these unnamed Jet sources. That's the show. Leave all your comments down below, and be sure to visit Law and Batting Order at lawandbattingorder.com, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, have a great week, guys.